your breath, my bellows, my heart, your hearth. Today, we walk in thin places. Today, we carry a new ember. Welcome to Embers, a Whisper and Flame podcast. My name is Michael and I am the voice of Whisper and Flame, the voice that will guide you and journey with you these next 30 days. When your flame has burned down to embers, and all you can do is but whisper, you are welcome here. If you haven't yet, pick up a copy of Embers, 30 Days for Holding What Remains. It's a guided devotional journal that lets you encounter art and poetry and scripture and gives you space to write your story for yourself. Visit our website, whisperandflame.store, or our Etsy shop, or Amazon. I'm a former staff pastor at an inner-city homeless shelter. I was a hospice chaplain working with patients facing the ends of their lives. I planted a church that welcomed deconstructing Christians before deconstruction was even a term. 2 years after we lost the baby, each year growing the discontent in our lives and the distance between us, my ex and I, along with our flickering little 4-month-old daughter, all drove to Atlanta to go to my sister's wedding over a 3-day holiday weekend. We tried the 10-hour drive while our daughter was awake. What a huge mistake. She cried, and finally we got a room for the night, got her to sleep, and crashed ourselves. The next day's drive was difficult. She struggled and fussed. But eventually we made it to our hotel in Atlanta. It was a fantastic 3-day weekend. Even my grandmother was on her very best behavior. The Sunday evening ceremony went off without a hitch, with an old friend of ours officiating and my sister locking down a great guy that we were all happy to have in our family. My wife and I decided, because of Little Miss Fussy Butt, that we would drive back that night to my parents' house, which was on our way home. We would crash there and finish our drive the following day, Monday, the holiday. We said our goodbyes, hugs all around, and started making our way north. It was a brilliant move driving overnight. The kid was fast asleep and my wife followed shortly thereafter. Soon it was just me, alone with my thoughts, driving back to a life I was dreading returning to. In the 2 years since we lost the baby so suddenly, I found in my heart a growing fear. I would obsess over the fear that life would be ripped away again, but this time in more and more irrational ways. That an accident would take my wife. That my daughter would catch a stray bullet in the car when we were driving on the interstate. That a piano dangling from a mid-rise would fall and crush my mom, who just happened to be walking by. My mind obsessed over the possibilities for more and more absurd scenarios, and it treated them like real possibilities. Yeah, I was in a bit of a state. This dread was all I felt sometimes. More and more it became the normative state of my mind. I learned to expect that things would go bad. Murphy's Law, whatever can go wrong will. I lived like that, watching for things to go wrong, and when you do that for long enough, the wrong becomes all you can see. And I began to hate God for it all. In my more and more irrational fears of this life that I had been given, and this obsessive mind that couldn't let go of the bad thoughts. For the possibility of loss and the possibility of not losing anything. For terrible change and no change at all. Because at the same time I found a fear in my heart that nothing at all would ever change and that I would be stuck. My job was in the toilet. I had no real purpose or drive in it, and the job itself rewarded being religiously inhumane to people. I couldn't have been in a worse career path, but it paid well. I lived in a city I hated, but that contained every member of my wife's family, so I was stuck. Making good money at a job that killed my soul, stuck in a city with no real prospects for more, and in a marriage where we were slowly losing each other. Fighting more, less able to speak without offense, without misunderstanding. I was afraid, all the time, of losing my job, of keeping my job, of forcing our family to move, of staying in the same place, of losing my wife. I couldn't escape the swirling storm of fear for long. At my sister's wedding, we had been granted a reprieve for a time. We had fun, but on that long overnight drive, I was once again alone in the dark with my thoughts. And I was afraid again. And then I felt it. A sparkling presence. In the dark, in the car with me. And a thought, a single thought that changed everything for me. And I knew it wasn't me thinking it. It wasn't coming from me, it came from without, not within. It was a thought that said, if you're going to be afraid all the time, why not just fear me? I didn't need to ask who this was. I knew. I didn't need to ask what was happening. I knew. I was being freed. And that was the immediate feeling I had. Total freedom. Total fearlessness. That if I feared God again, instead of hating Him for leading me to this point in my life, anything was possible. Because it would mean giving up my fears of this life, rational or irrational, giving them up and putting all of that energy into the true fear of the Lord. And of course, I needed wisdom. I was plagued by irrational fears and uncontrollable anxieties, and what is the fear of the Lord if not the beginning of all wisdom? If you're going to be afraid all the time, why not just fear me? I said yes. I said yes, and it started me on a path to becoming something new. I started following Him on that path, and Yeah, we all know I haven't walked the path very straight or very well over the years. But the amazing thing is that he knew already when he spoke that night. He knew already that I would fail as a husband, that I would sin and hurt the people that I loved. And still, he freed me. He entered my car that night while the girls were asleep and I was driving and fearing and fretting and dreading through the mountains of Tennessee. And he freed me. He made my car a thin place that night. A thin place is where the distance between you and God suddenly feels small, barely there at all. Sometimes they're found in a church or a mountaintop, but often they appear in unexpected places. Hospital waiting rooms, your bedroom on a restless night, or even the driver's seat of a car when your heart just can't hold anymore. Thin places are less about a holy geography and more about presence. Or, said better, it's the presence that makes the geography holy. Presence that makes our scars into holy ground. How about you? Have you ever experienced a thin place where God was waiting for you? A place where your scar turned into holy ground because God wanted to meet you there? I had no idea what my life would turn out to be. All I knew was that whatever direction I went, whatever life I chose, whatever sins I committed, I knew that I was going to be okay. That to fear the Lord is to give up on every other fear. That I was not doomed. That my life could be lived on holy ground. And that even if I suffered and hurt, it would never again be in vain. My scars, like his, would be used for good, for hope. God is most present to us in the hard times, the thin places when we look back to see. There were thin places all over my story when I looked back. And not just for me, but for other lives I overlapped with as well. A close friend of mine, Finn, became homeless, and I remember bringing him into the shelter I used to work at. It was a day of despair for him, but also it was the start of hope for him. A chance to get clean, to get back on his feet, to get a job, to get home, to have a program to work. And he did. He was in the program for 7 months, right at the start of COVID. And when he dried out, he was clean. He was more okay than I had ever seen him. He learned something there. His scars were places where God walked. His addiction was Finn's thin place, where the freedom God designed him for was set to begin. The bedside of a dying person is the ultimate thin place. As a hospice chaplain, I had come to Kim's house to pray for her and her husband and read them some scripture. They were old bikers and were always grateful for prayer. They were great people. Kim was usually a pretty fast, pretty predictable visit. There was this one time, though, where she tried to get up out of her bed that was stationed in her living room. Her husband asked her, "Baby, where are you going?" She said, I'm going bye-bye. And he said, where are you going bye-bye to? And she said, pointing to me, he's taking me to heaven. She saw it then, the mystery that our scars are holy ground, the places where God meets us. Even though the cancer had begun spreading into her brain, she could see that it was almost her time to go, and that the wound she thought would never heal, and it never did, became the doorway where God walked in. The chapter of your story you wanted to skip becomes the very place he enters. The scar remains, but transforms, because it's in his presence that it becomes holy ground. They are openings, offering you a glimpse of something through your wound, through your illness, your addiction, your fear. A glimpse of something new on the horizon, a spark in the ash. Reminding you that there is nothing that can happen to you, no scar too big that it cannot be used as a window to the God who never gave up on you. Even in what seemed like his silence, and the questions that were never answered, in the hollow spaces, God never abandoned you. He was suffering beside you, taking scars as well, just like you, and for you. And it's through his scars, looking through the very nail holes in his hands, that perhaps for the first time we can see, finally, hope. Real hope. Oh, and by the way, you may be saying to yourself, Michael was so desperate for a life change that he just made all that up. Or, this dude sure hears a lot of voices. He must have something wrong with him. Yeah, you're kind of right about that part. I know it was God that spoke into my fear. I know it was God entering and making a thin place that night. It's because of the timing. God entered the scene and freed me 2 years to the day that we lost the baby. I didn't know it at the time it was happening. I wasn't thinking about the date and the time. I was just driving through the dark. Early Monday morning, Labor Day, 2013. I have a suspicion that God spoke to me the same minute our baby passed away. I only remembered the date, the anniversary, and the following days. We were all tired from the drive the remainder of Monday and had to get back into the swing on Tuesday. It hit me like a bolt out of the blue on Wednesday, and it confirmed for me that I hadn't made it up. That God was really freeing me from the life trend that started for me when the baby died. And that whatever happened, he was calling me into a new life. One where my scars would never again be hidden. And even they would become holy ground where God would regularly meet me for conversation, for relationship, for hope. Breathe our breath prayer with me. Inhale. My scars. And exhale. Holy ground. And again. Inhale. My scars. And exhale. holy ground. I want to know your story. I want to know about the thin places in your life where God has met with you over the ground of your scars. If you'd like to share your story with us or even join us on this podcast, we would love to hear from you. Reach out to us on the Whisper and Flame Facebook pages, the Instagram page, or send us an email at whisperinflame, that's whisper, the letter N, flame, @gmail.com. We look forward to connecting with you. Thank you for joining me today for Ember 14, Thin Places, and the end of our week of silence. Pick up a copy of Ember's 30 Days for Holding What Remains. Allow me to bless you as we depart for now. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift his countenance upon you and bring you peace. Join me tomorrow for a new week called Kindling and Day 15 of Embers, Spark in the Ash. Before you go, remember, even the grave is not godless, but a child's lost and found. You, yes, you are beloved, every scar, holy ground.